I'm Alexandra Cousteau, and I'm here with Charlie and Alessandra to talk about the oceans. Hi, guys.
Hi. So we've got some questions for you.
Very good.
What is your favourite thing about the oceans?
Well, I don't know if I just have one favorite thing about the ocean. Certainly, I love the smell of the ocean. I love the sound of the waves. I love the way sunsets look over the ocean. There's also a lot of animals I love in the ocean. Some of my favorite animals that I've been able to swim with are whale sharks and manta rays and sharks and dolphins. But as exciting as it is to be with the big animals, sometimes just being able to dive on a coral reef and see all the little animals that are living together in the coral, and each one is going about its business and doing its thing, and sometimes they fight, and sometimes they chase each other, and sometimes if you're there at night, they're sleeping. And if you shine your flashlight on them, you wake them up, and they look very disturbed. And that's what I love about the ocean. It's how much life is there, and how different all of the animals are, how different they live, and they look, and they act. It's like there's never enough time to explore it all.
What is your best memory of being in or on the ocean?
Well, my best memories are in the ocean rather than on the ocean. I don't like being on top of it as much as I like being under it. And I think what I just talked about, all of the experiences I have sharing time with the dolphins and sharks and humpback whales and manta rays, those are my favorite memories. Because you share a moment with a creature that is completely unique and extraordinary. And when a dolphin looks you in the eye, you see something in that eye that is so very human. There's communication that you wouldn't expect, and that's really special. So I think those are my favorite memories.
What do you think are the biggest risks to the oceans today?
Well, probably the biggest risk is the risk that not enough of us are going to take the time to learn about what's happening to the oceans and change our habits. The biggest risk is that we'll just keep doing what we've always done, and that there'll be more and more plastic going into the ocean and more destruction of ecosystems and pollution, unsustainable fishing too much. I think that there's a lot we can do to bring our oceans back. You know, I think that there's a lot we can do so that by the time you're my age, which isn't that old, the oceans will be more abundant than they are today. There'll be more fish. There'll be more forests underwater. There'll be more whales. There'll be more sharks. We can work to that. And I think that's what we need to tell people.
Could you tell us a bit about the sort of work you have done to protect the oceans, A, as a filmmaker, B, as an environmental activist?
Well, most of the work I've done has been about trying to figure out how to find solutions and tell stories about those solutions. And for the past 6 years, I've been working on a project called Save the Oceans and Feed the World, which is basically about stopping overfishing of the fish that we like to eat. So that by listening to the scientists who tell us how many we can take so that they can come back and their population can come back, we can actually feed more hungry people around the world. We could feed twice as many people in the world than we do now if we brought the fish back. And then there wouldn't be just fish for more people, there would also be fish for sharks and fish for sea lions and fish for everything that wants to eat fish. We could have lots more fish in the ocean if we did it well. So we've been working on that, and part of that has been going on expeditions where we've been using robots that we send deep into the ocean so that we can see what the fish's homes are like in the deep ocean. Because what people don't realize is that fish need homes too, right? Just like you need to have a home where you can eat and feel safe and be with your family and your friends and have shelter to sleep in at night, fish need that too. And so we need to figure out where their homes are so we can protect them. And that's a big part of helping those fish populations to be more abundant, right? And so we take robots and we throw them deep into the ocean, and we have a joystick, and we can film deep in the ocean using that joystick to tell the robot where to go. And when we find places where there's lots of baby fish hiding in corals and sponges and sea fans and rocky reefs, then we tell the governments that that's a very important home for fish. And most of the time, they listen to us and they turn it into a marine protected area. So that's some of the things that I've been doing to help fish.
Who or what is the main inspiration for your work?
Well, I would have to, of course, say that my father, Philippe, and my grandfather, Jacques, were big influences on my life, especially when I was a child. They were very adventurous. They loved to tell stories, and they made the first films about the ocean. My grandfather invented scuba diving because he needed to be able to get underwater and stay there long enough to make films about it. But then he also had to invent cameras that could go underwater, right? Because if you drop your normal everyday camera into the ocean, it won't work very well afterwards, will it? So he had to invent the cameras that could go down there, and he had to invent the lights that could light up the deep ocean so that he could film in it. So he had all these inventions he had to make, and then he was able to make films about the ocean. And what's hard to imagine now is that 70 years ago, nobody knew what that looked like, because no one had ever seen it. He was the first with his inventions to be able to do that. So that was very inspiring to me, the idea that you shouldn't be limited by what's possible, right? You can invent the tools to do what you want. And that gave me a lot of inspiration when I was younger. But now, of course, I have children. I have a daughter who's 7 and a son who's 3. And like most mamas, I'm very inspired by my children. So a lot of what I do now is to make sure that the oceans that exist when they're my age is better than the one we have today.
Have you ever seen any of his particular tools that he used underwater?
I have. I've seen the old regulators. A regulator is what you put in your mouth, and it brings air from the tank into the regulator, and then you suck on the regulator, and you breathe, and then you exhale, and the air goes out through another opening on the regulator. So I've seen the original regulators and masks and things that he used. But what's interesting is that the technology of his invention, like what he built to be able to go and breathe underwater, is very simple, but there's not much that you could do to make it better. So the regulator that he invented is really very much the same one that we have today.
Do you think children have a part to play in looking after the oceans?
I do. I think there's a lot that kids can do to have a really important voice in helping the oceans. And part of it is making sure your moms and dads do things like recycle or refuse plastic straws when you go to a restaurant. You can also talk to your parents about the fish that you eat at home and make sure that it's sustainably caught. Because some fish, like Chilean sea bass, are 80 years old by the time they're big enough to eat. And they come from really deep, cold water in Antarctica. And people like them so much there aren't very many left. So Chilean sea bass is probably not a great choice. Or tuna fish. Eating a tuna fish is like eating a panda bear. There's hardly any left. But there's other fish, if you like to eat fish, where there's a lot more of them and they're a lot healthier. And they come from places where people take care of their fish and make sure that they don't fish too many. So you can talk to your parents about what kind of fish you eat at home, and maybe go on a beach cleanup and help pick up trash on the beach. And most importantly, learn as much as you can. So when you get a little bit older, you can have a voice that is informed and passionate and can inspire people to follow you in protecting the oceans.
Do you know any children who have been involved in projects to protect the oceans?
I do. I know a lot of kids that have done things for the ocean. Like one little girl, she had her birthday party at the beach, and she brought bags for all of her friends, and her party was basically a beach cleanup because she wanted her friends to understand how important it was to take care of the ocean, and she wanted them to help her make it better. I know another little girl that decided that she was going to swim to raise awareness about the oceans. So she would swim and swim and swim in the ocean to raise money for charity. There's a lot of kids that have given talks in their local town councils. There's a little talks, gave a TED talk about the environment. There's clubs that have been started. Kids are getting really active because there's not a lot of time to change what's happening, and we need you guys to be part of that change. I think that one of the most important things is collaboration, where people come together and share ideas and share solutions and share resources to fight for something bigger than themselves. And a lot of times, people who are worried about the environment and worried about the oceans, there's so few resources, so little money to be able to do important work that sometimes they fight, with each other about who gets the resources or the time or the access to do the work. And I think we're not helping ourselves by doing that. I think, it's important to work together and share the best ideas and find ways that we can all be part of one big solution rather than all trying to do our own thing.
If you were a sea creature, what one would you be and why?
Oh, well, that's kind of like asking somebody what their favorite superhero is, right? What power would you have if you were a superhero? I don't know. Sometimes I think it would be wonderful to be a whale, because when whales sing, they can hear each other across the ocean, and I think that's pretty cool. But I also think it would be great to be a dolphin, because you can fly through the water and you can jump so high, and they always look like they're having so much fun. Sometimes I think it would be amazing to be a blue shark, because blue sharks can swim all around the world. They just swim and swim and swim all over the world's oceans. There's nothing that holds them back. They're completely free. As I understand it, the UK is already doing a lot for marine protected areas, and that's really important. Something called the Blue Belt. Getting more marine protected areas to help protect the oceans. That's really important. There's a lot of really important work that the UK can do for fishing and sustainable fishing. And I think that that's something where we need more voices demanding that fisheries be sustainable, that we listen to the scientists, and we limit what we take from the ocean. I think that's important. I think also looking at alternatives to fishing, like ocean farming. Those are new ideas that are pretty exciting, and I think could have a really important place in what people do in the UK's coastal waters. How we bring food back from the ocean doesn't have to be destructive. It can also be restorative and make things better. So those kinds of solutions are interesting to look at. And yeah, I'm sure there's more, but that's a good place to start.
We Planetarian children are sending messages to each other across the world. The messages are about our hopes for the ocean and ideas for solving ocean problems. What would your message be?
To the children?
Yeah.
Keep talking to each other. Make friends in other places. share your ideas, find out about the problems that they have, and maybe there's ideas or solutions that you can give them or that they could give you. Having those connections is really important.
What kind of world would you like to see in the future?
I would like to see a world where there's more abundance than there is today. And abundance is when there's, if there's an abundance of candy at your birthday party, it means there's a lot of candy and everyone's really happy about it. So I would like to see an abundance of nature in our world. And it means we have a lot of work to do because we have to bring back a lot of what we've lost. But I think it's possible. And I think if we focus on restoring abundance rather than conserving and sustaining what's left, then we'll have a totally different perspective on the work that we need to do. And I think we can be successful at it. But that's the world I want. I want a more abundant, diverse, rich world. Rich with nature and with animals and with clean water and clean air and forests. That's the world I want. Because when there's more nature, then life is better for people too. It's not just having nature there because we want nature to be there. More nature is a better world for all of us. When we lose our nature, then our quality of life goes down a lot. So I think that's the world I would like.